So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, someone's asked me about this fight. And you know what? This fight doesn't get mentioned a lot. And I actually think it's a fight that would be a cracking fight. A cracking fight that actually doesn't get mentioned a lot at all. And you think to yourself, why doesn't it get mentioned? Because it would actually be a big fight. And that would be Golovkin v David Benavidez. I think stylistically, I think the fight's a beauty as well. And someone asked me, Imran, how do you think that fight would go between Benavidez and Golovkin? And to be honest with you guys, I actually think this would be an unbelievable fight. Unbelievable fight. I think styles make fights, and I think stylistically, the way Benavidez fights with his fast hands and he's open, and Golovkin coming forward, I think all you get is a war. You get a war. Now, the problem is with this fight is that Golovkin doesn't really gain anything from it. And here's what I mean by that. Golovkin at the minute is looking for one or two big paydays before he ends his career. He's 39 years of age. He's coming to the end of his career. He's coming to the stage of his career where it's time for him to hang it up now, and he's looking for last one or two big paydays. And he's still hoping that the trilogy with Canelo will come off. Now, he's looking at guys like Andre, Charlo, and someone like Benavidez. It's a fight, obviously, at 168. It'd have to be because Benavidez is a big 168. He'd be looking at those guys and say, what do I get out of that? They're risky fights. They're young. They're fresh. They're hungry. Although Andre's not very young still. I think Andre's 33. So he's kind of like, although he's been around for a very long time. So he's also getting up in age. But Benavidez is very young, very fresh, very hungry, and he wants that work, and he wants to fight these guys. And I'm pretty sure Benavidez would jump at an opportunity to fight Gennady Golovkin. Who wouldn't, right? Golovkin's a legend, a top fighter, a strong fighter. But, yeah, I think Golovkin is looking at someone like Benavidez, and he'll think, no, I don't really need that at this stage. And that's why I think Golovkin's looking for that Murata fight. I'll tell you why he's looking for that Murata fight, because the Murata fight is a big money fight, and actually Murata is probably the weaker link out of all the champions. See, Charlo and Andre probably don't make Golovkin the kind of money, and they're probably harder fights. And he'll get paid more money for Murata, and he'll become a unified champion, which will then put him in a great position to demand that trilogy fight with Canelo Alvarez. So do you see where I'm coming from with this? That Golovkin's looking at it strategically from a business point of view, because he'll be confident that he beats Murata. When he beats Murata, now he's a unified champion at middleweight. That gives someone like Canelo an incentive to fight Golovkin, because now Golovkin has two of the belts at middleweight. It gives Canelo an opportunity to become unified at middleweight. So I clearly understand why he would be going for Murata. However, I would stylistically think him and Benavidez make for a cracking matchup. I just don't think Benavidez has anything to offer Golovkin. And Golovkin's going to be looking at it that, why do I need Benavidez? What do I gain out of it? To be honest, who would I favor in the fight? I favor Golovkin. I favor Golovkin to beat Benavidez even now. Even now, I'll tell you why. Benavidez is very open, defensively not very sound. And Golovkin, one thing we know about Golovkin's got a great chin. He's got a great chin, and Benavidez has been hurt before. He's been put down, and Golovkin, as we know, is a monster puncher. He's a very dangerous puncher. And I think the reason why I think Benavidez stylistically makes a good fight is because Benavidez doesn't, he comes forward. Golovkin comes forward. Golovkin doesn't want to fight somebody that's got legs, that's moving around the ring. Not to say that he can't beat someone like that still. Just the fact that I think Golovkin would, at this age, prefer if somebody comes to him. And Benavidez would come to him. And that's why I think he'd present a lot of opportunities for someone like Golovkin to hit and hurt him. And I do think Golovkin has the kind of power to hurt Benavidez. Benavidez, I'm not sure. Although Benavidez is a volume puncher, I'm not sure he'll have the power to hurt Golovkin. Golovkin's got a granite chin, as we know. Never been down, never been wobbled. He's got unbelievable chin. So for me, although Golovkin's getting up in age, I would still favor him in that fight. Not to say Benavidez couldn't beat him. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great fight. However, I would favor Golovkin to probably even stop Benavidez. Just because I think defensively Benavidez is a bit loose. And I just think with someone like Golovkin, I can see Golovkin catching him and hurting him. Because Benavidez has been down before. And he went down against a guy that was nowhere near in Golovkin's class. And Golovkin's a way bigger puncher than the guy that put him down. Not to say sometimes, listen, you can get put down. That don't mean anything. I just think that the way Benavidez fights, I think there's a great chance that he gets caught with something big. So I would favor Golovkin in that fight. However, that is the kind of fight. And you know what? I've got to say this, that I give someone like Benavidez a lot of respect. I tell you why. Because Benavidez isn't waiting around for that big fight. Benavidez wants to fight everybody. He wants to fight Charlo. He wants to fight Plant. He wants to fight these guys. He doesn't just want to jump in there with Canelo. He wants to fight all of these guys. And I think a fight between Golovkin and Benavidez, for me, I think I would favor Golovkin in that fight. See, the thing is, it just depends where Golovkin's head's at, what he's thinking. I personally think Golovkin now is not what he used to be, and he doesn't have the same mentality that he used to be. I think Golovkin has become more of a businessman, where he's looking to get the fights that are big fights, like a Murata, but ones that he can win and are going to pay him well, while he's waiting for that big fight with Canelo, because I believe that he thinks that the Canelo fight is still going to happen. So why take a risk? Because I do think someone like Charlo, Benavidez are risks. I would favor him strongly against Andrade, but even that is a slight risk. I think Benavidez and Charlo would be high risk at this point in Golovkin's career. Not to say Golovkin can't beat either guy. I just think that Golovkin fighting someone like Benavidez would be high risk. And does Golovkin really need that at this stage in his career? Probably not. You know, he's a very accomplished fighter. He's achieved a lot. Like I said earlier, he's a legend. He's a guy that's, you know, done a lot at middleweight. And he's never really... And Golovkin's never really been keen to step up to 168. He's never really done it. He stayed at middleweight his whole career, which for me at times left me scratching my head. Because I thought to myself, there was many fights at 168 that were there for Golovkin that I thought Golovkin could have done well, especially against like Carl Froch. I think that would have been a fight that I would have favored Golovkin in. I would have also, you know, liked to see, I think Golovkin now, there's guys at super middleweight, like Billy Joe moved up to super middleweight. You know, Golovkin was a big puncher at middleweight. You know, Billy Joe wasn't a big puncher at a middleweight. You know, and he still moved up and took, you know, tried to fight those bigger guys. But there was guys out there like Callum Smith, you know, guys that Golovkin could have easily beat. So I didn't quite understand the reluctancy from Golovkin or his team not to consider 168, because I do think he would have become a two-weight world champion. I believe he could have even dominated certain fighters at 168. And he could have unified the 168 titles at one point, because the 168-pound division wasn't very strong. You know, it's only now Canelo's moved up. He's the top fighter there. But if you look at the fighters before, you know, Canelo was there, it was quite a weak division. That's why before Canelo moved up to 168, I actually thought that someone like Callum Smith had a great opportunity of becoming a unified champion or cleaning up. Because the division wasn't very strong. So that's why when you think Golovkin could have easily moved up, when Andre Ward moved up to 175, you left you scratching your head why Golovkin didn't move up, because Golovkin, for me, would have beaten a lot of those 168 fighters. You know, there was a lot of champions there like Badu Jack and James DeGale and guys like that, that you think to yourself that Golovkin would have beat those guys. So why didn't he move up to fight those guys and look to clean up at 168? You know, it left me scratching my head a little bit, because Golovkin was really, really good. Golovkin gave Canelo, after Mayweather, his two hardest fights, and a lot of people thought he won the first one. The second one, I thought Canelo edged it, but I did think he beat Canelo the first time. So yeah, listen, I want to see Golovkin fight Benavidez. I would love to see that fight. I don't think it happens because of all the things that I've just explained. But I would favor Golovkin in that fight. I do. I think stylistically, I think it's a great fight for Golovkin. And it's a great fight for Benavidez as well, because I just think that Benavidez won't hurt Golovkin. But I think Golovkin could hurt him. And I think Benavidez' defense, he's quite open. He's fast and he throws some good combinations, Benavidez. But when he does that, he's quite open and he's open to be countered. And someone like Golovkin, we all know Golovkin's the type of fighter that he's willing to take a few to give a few. And Golovkin giving a few is dangerous because he can really crack. And Benavidez, to me, looks a little open for my liking. And I just think Golovkin could nail him with something. But that, again, it's one of those fights where by no means Benavidez might prove us all wrong or prove me wrong and go on to win it. I think Benavidez has the capability at this stage in Golovkin's career to beat him. It's a very intriguing matchup, very intriguing fight. I actually think it would be a cracking fight and a fight that I think Golovkin should look at. But like I said, if Benavidez was a champion at 168, it would make a lot more sense. When Benavidez held the WBC belt, he didn't get those big fights. So what's to say he's going to get something like that now that he's not champion? I definitely think Golovkin Plant might be a bit more tricky. I'll tell you why. Because Plant moves around. He's got legs and he's got fast hands. He could move around against Golovkin. And is that the kind of style Golovkin? I personally think that he beats Plant. I would favor him, but I think Plant stylistically could be tough as well. You know, Benavidez, you would have see with Benavidez and Plant, I would favor Benavidez. I would favor Golovkin against Plant and Benavidez. And that really just shows you, even at 39, how good Golovkin was a couple of years back. The fact that I'm still at 39, I would still favor him to beat both Plant and Benavidez. But I definitely think that a Golovkin-Benavidez fight would be stylistically a very, very good matchup. Very, very good matchup. And I think it would be a very fan-friendly fight as long as it lasts. And I do think that fight would end by knockout. I honestly think that Golovkin would stop Benavidez. But again, it all comes down to Benavidez' toughness. I have seen him hurt before, but that's because I think Benavidez is the type of fighter that could get caught with a certain type of shot. You know, when you're throwing those fast hands, there's a great chance that, you know, you leave yourself exposed, leave yourself open, and you get nailed with something. And Benavidez does strike me as that type of fighter. You know, I like that style. Benavidez' style, Pacquiao, Khan. I've seen them, but those type of guys can be nailed with certain types of shots because they throw punches in bunches. And Benavidez is another fighter that throws punches in bunches. And when you have that kind of style, you've got to have a great chin. And Benavidez, not to say he looks tough, but I just think if Golovkin catches you, I think it could be trouble. So I honestly think I would favor Golovkin in that fight, but Benavidez for me would be definitely have a great chance of beating Golovkin at this stage. You know, we saw against Derevyanchenko, Golovkin didn't really look himself. He looked kind of old. So could Benavidez's youth, hungriness ain't a word, the fact that he's hungry, the fact that he's young, he's fresh, he wants it, would that be too much for Golovkin at this stage? And that's what makes the fight intriguing. I would still favor Golovkin if I was making a prediction for that fight, but it's by no means a foregone conclusion. Benavidez could definitely cause an upset there. And that's why fights like that, and that's what fights I want to see. I just feel a lot of these guys are just waiting around for Canelo, but I want to see these guys mixing with one another and fighting one another, because it gets kind of boring, Canelo fighting all of them. Why don't they fight each other and give the fans great fights? Because that's what fans want to see. Fans want to see all these guys fight one another. You know, nobody else is unifying the titles apart from Canelo. At middleweight, we've got 4 champions. We've got Murata, Charlo, Andrade, and Golovkin. They're not unifying. They're not unifying. And that's what's frustrating. And Canelo's unifying the belts at 168. But I would love to see Golovkin fight Benavidez. What a fight that would be. And who would you guys favor? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.